Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters, and today's conversation is centered around something many of you might be going through yourselves. I know I am. That is midlife, and it's going to hit us all at one time or another. So if you aren't even in midlife yet, this is a conversation that can really help you as you approach it, because a lot of it is misunderstood, and a lot of us feel alone in what we are going through. In fact, I had so many aha moments in this conversation that I realized that what I was going through wasn't just something that I was going through, that it was something that was happening to many women, not just myself. Gen Xers right now, anyone born between 1965 and 1980, most likely right now we are in our midlife, and we remember like Teen Beat magazine, maybe had crushes on Barry Manilow. I know I did. Neil Diamond. We're told come back when the street lights were on, when we were playing in the summertime. I mean, I'm so grateful to have grown up during that period of time. There was so much freedom in our summers and we had so much fun, but now, hello, here we are. And what we are dealing with right now as women, a lot of the societal pressures, and a lot of women are feeling burnt out and exhausted, and they don't know where to go next. What is next for us? Right now, we're dealing with physical changes. We look in the mirror and it's like, who is that person in the mirror? We don't get all the attention that we might have gotten out in public or from men, and we might feel invisible. That was one of my big ahas, because I felt that many times in the last year. And we have bills, debts, house repairs, childcare, parent care, career worries. We're waking up in the middle of the night. We're not able to sleep. So all of these are the hormonal changes that go along with perimenopause and menopause. Not only are there hormonal changes, there's a lot of emotional and mental changes that go along with it, which leads a lot of women to question their identity. A lot of this despair doesn't necessarily come from our waning physiques, which we see happen. And we can do a lot of things to keep our bodies as healthy as possible, but still, the skin's going to sag at some point. And it's not necessarily about getting that next great facial or getting that beautiful new dress that you've had your eye on or getting that next Botox injection. The angst a lot of these women are feeling is something far greater. Today's guest, Dr. Lisa Petty, otherwise known as the Midlife Alchemist and author of Forget About Having It All, gained her PhD centered on the well-being of women in their midlife. She believes that once midlife women embrace these concepts, we can teach them to mentor to our younger generations. Lisa is now on a mission to inspire and create a midlife movement in which women let go of what they are supposed to be and do, and instead embrace their unique gifts and visions for their lives. After hundreds of interviews, countless hours of conversations, her own journey, and coaching countless women through their confusion, Lisa has formulated a simple step-by-step strategy that can help you figure out who you are now, what's next for you, and how to take the important first steps to creating the life you want. Lisa's book, Forget About Having It All, The Midlife Woman's Guide to Creating the Life You Want, is a clear and concise and practical guide to help midlife women discover who they are now and what they want next. Forget About Having It All is based on Lisa's doctoral research and also combines observations and strategies from Dr. Petty's own journey of midlife and self-discovery. So it's not over at 40. It's not over at 50. It's time to look at our lives in a whole new way, to start thinking about something new, because we can really have whatever we want and be happy in it. We don't need mundane just because we're at a certain age. Life shouldn't be anything short of fabulous. Today's guest, Dr. Lisa Petty, the Midlife Alchemist, is going to share with us exactly how to do just that. Lisa, welcome to the Awaken Heart podcast. I'm very excited to have you on here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited for our chat as well.
I love what we're going to talk about right now in this conversation. And it's so relevant what's happening with a lot of women that are coming into middle age, midlife. What do I do now? I'm in midlife. I'm probably past the over 40s. I'm into the 50s now. And I'm seeing things change, physically, not having as much satisfaction and wanting to do more and stepping on outside of the box. And a lot of women, have raised their families and, maybe they got in a divorce or maybe they're still in the family. The kids have flown the coop and it's like, what's next? What's next for me in life? Well, and then we're filled with so many shoulds about, oh, well, this is what it should look like. And it's like stepping outside of what, society, what maybe our families, whatever our parents, our relatives, or friends are doing, and like really carving a path of our own. And you're helping a lot of women do that. You're the midlife alchemist.
Yes, isn't that cheeky? I just love it too.
Yes.
And so thank you for sharing all of that because it is important. And let's go back to what is midlife because people have an idea of what that means, right? And there's two ways to define that. It could be the middle of your life, and you never know that until you take your last breath. What was the middle of my life? But there's also this idea that it is the middle years. So it's when you're not young and when you're not old. So anything in between. So there's no age attached to that, right? It's more related to your experiences. But we do get to this stage, we'll call it, when everything seems to change almost overnight, right? So suddenly, and not surprisingly, it's sort of related to perimenopause and menopause. So your body is going through this crazy, you don't even know yourself anymore. I had an experience where I went to bed one night and everything was great. And I woke up the next day and my jeans wouldn't do up. And I was like, what just happened to me? Like, what is going on? And having these intense conversations with my body, like, why are you betraying me? What is happening here? We were friends, right? And now I don't even know how to feed you anymore. I don't know how to exercise you. I don't know anything about you. So that starts to happen, right? Where our body is changing. It's because our hormones are changing, right? But that doesn't just change us physically, it changes us mentally and emotionally as well. So this is happening. And as you said, if you have children, they have either left home, they're in the process of leaving home, or if you had children, in your late 30s or early 40s, they're at least more independent, right? They don't need your attention 24/7 like they did when they were babies. And women at this time of life, for a variety of different reasons, find that their marriages or long-term partnerships might be ending. They find that a career that they've been in for, decades is driving them crazy or bores them out of their mind and they don't want to do it anymore. And it all seems to happen at the same time. And it can be incredibly overwhelming, as I'm sure, you can speak to, or perhaps that was your experience as well.
I spent a lot of my 30s into my early 40s in California. So I was in entertainment. I had sun. It was like the land of the eternal youth. I turned 50 and I looked like I was probably in my mid 30s and 38. And I never thought it was going to hit me. Never. I thought, at 40 something, I was doing the pull away. Like, what? Like, why can't I read that? It's your, you need glasses, sweetheart. So it's really only, I think in the last year that I'm really noticing, oh, my skin's looser. Like, I'm looking at pictures just even from a year ago or even 2 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, it was so pretty. My skin was so glowy. So I am noticing it now. I never thought it was going to hit me, but I am noticing different things are tighter. Skin is looser. There's like, little like moles where I never saw them before or like, so it is a little it's distressing. And I've been on the path of wanting more for a while. And yeah, I want so much more for my life. And I know I can have it, but I do have those self-limiting beliefs sometimes, even though I'm stepping past the comfort. And that's what a
Yes.
lot of women need to do is like, okay, let me just step
Well,
past this
yeah, so
comfort.
it's about reframing everything,
Mhm.
right? And you're still a beautiful woman, and you will be a beautiful woman for for the rest of your life. But you have to make peace with those changes that you see, or you're going to be so desperately unhappy, right? And
Yes.
so let's step back for a second and figure out where that came from. This connecting so much attention on perhaps our looks. Not that I necessarily want to get into that, but it is part of it, right? You had this certain presence in the world, and it's changing now. You show up in a different way. And have you had this experience where you've noticed that you're invisible, perhaps? Like,
Yes.
yes, right? And that's disconcerting for someone, particularly who's been in the entertainment. I mean, you're used to eyes on you,
Yes.
right? And now it's almost as if sometimes you feel like you could stand on a chair in the kitchen and scream, and still life moves on around you and nobody even sees you.
Yeah.
And so that's challenging too, and a real hit on your self-esteem and your self-confidence and your value in the world when you're starting to notice this invisibility,
Mm-hmm.
right? So incredibly challenging. And I had a similar experience where I noticed that I wasn't being noticed anymore. And I don't mean men. I don't mean that. I don't mean men weren't looking at me. I mean, or, romantic. There was not, it wasn't about
Mm-hmm.
that. It was more about, young women weren't noticing me anymore. In a crowd, I wasn't noticed
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Yeah, and I think I read this woman, I can't remember her name. I'm not gonna get it. Kristen, I can't remember her name. Beautiful actress, beautiful, beautiful actress. And she said something about walking through the streets of London and nobody notices her. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
nobody notices you. You're like stunning. You're stunning, and people don't notice her. So it's not about looks, it's about something
Mm-hmm.
changes. And of course, it hasn't been studied because it's women's health, and that's a little bugaboo of mine. Women's health is not particularly well studied,
Mm-mm.
but I think it has something to do with the pheromones, which is sort of the scent that we
Mm.
give off, right? I would love someone to study that. But anyway, that's something else you need to get used to. What's my new identity now when I don't carry the same presence in the world? Anyway, so when you look at sort of where these things came from, why do I attach so much to my presence, right? Am I not more than that? Who am I in that? Um, I like to go back. So I did my doctorate researching this experience that women have at midlife and looking after themselves, right? Taking care of their well-being. And that came from being a holistic nutritionist and a nutrition coach, and noticing that women, when they get to midlife, they weren't taking care of themselves anymore. And they weren't a priority, even if they said they were a priority and that they wanted to improve their energy or release weight or whatever it was. They just weren't doing the thing. And when I was studying this, like intently studying what's getting in the way, it was this concept of women can have it all. And we were raised with that, in the 80s, this idea, anyone from the 80s onward, this idea that women can have it all. You can have your big career, you can have an amazing marriage, you can have 2.3 children, you can have a huge house, 4 cars, vacations every year, and you're going to be wearing size 2 forever, and you're going to be perfect all the time, and all of sort of all of these expectations. And it went from being something that's a gift, here you can have whatever you want on the buffet, to, oh, you must have everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge is that the having comes with a lot of doing, and we end up exhausted. But buried in all of that is this idea that women must be attractive, we must look a certain way, we must act a certain way. So when we're a mother, we need to be generous and self-sacrificing and all of that kind of thing. And when we're a partner, we need to be sexy and, always available and happy and giving. And none of these things sort of allow for imperfection.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's no wonder we get to midlife it all goes to crap, right? Because everything you've ever known is out the window. Your genes don't fit the way they did. You don't sleep as well as you used to. You have a different presence when you come into the room. The expectations haven't changed, though. You still need to be stunning and giving and loving and generous. And I think we get to a point where we're just like, enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's so much pressure in that. And, that's what happened with like, was it the six of the feminist movement and like, oh, you can go out and work and you can be a parent and all that. But it's exhausting because we can't do it all. We got to like give some of those roles over to somebody else. Like the man can do some of those roles, but it is exhausting. And we've been in this thing of doing, instead of being.
Yes.
And we need to like kind of slow down and like tap into ourselves. And we don't have to have it all. That's like your book, Forget About Having It All. I was reading some excerpts from it. I absolutely love everything that was in there, but forget about it. We don't have to do it all. We want to do what is in alignment with ourselves. What brings us joy, right?
Exactly. So again, thinking about the pressures on us in having this career, we have to go out into the world, which is created by men for men, these corporations that a lot of us have worked in, that where there's that patriarchy, that structure in place. It's not about collaboration and connection, which is how women thrive. It's about competition and getting ahead and using logic. So it's always the brain. The brain is always in charge. Well, that's not how women excel. Yes, we're intelligent, and yes, we have logic, and yes, we do pro-con lists too, but our wisdom and our gift is in our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
in our hearts, in when we hear the expression, I knew it in my gut, or I felt it in my heart, that's real. And yet we've been told, oh, you're too emotional. That's just nonsense that you're just talking now. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so something about me is I'm a researcher, love it, and that's how I got the PhD. But I'm also I'm very aware that I'm on a spiritual journey, and I love the woo stuff. But I love when they cross over, and so there's research that shows that your heart has memory.
Mm-hmm.
Your heart can learn. And 90% of the communication from your gut and your heart with your brain starts in your gut and your heart. So we've got it all backwards, this idea of, thinking our way through our problems. We need to be feeling our way through our problems. And that's, I guess, when you get to midlife and you think, okay, well, I've done all those things. I've done the things that were required of me. Check. There's space now. Sometimes it's daunting, right? But there's an opportunity to shift. And that's what I like to encourage women to do, particularly because one of the things that happens that's very uncomfortable at midlife is this, I call it, it's a very technical term. It's called meh.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this ennui, which is way more than boredom. It's just this sense of there's no more excitement. I've done all the things that I was required to do. I've done all the things I set out to do. What's next for me? At the same time that you're having this, I don't even know who I am anymore. Nobody can see me. I don't have a voice. My body is going insane. That's become a full-time project, just trying to get to know my body again. And then there's this sort of heaviness that can set in. And it's partly related to the hormone changes. It's partly related, I don't know if you experience this, but problems with sleeping.
Yes, I sleep so good. Usually I've got all these like frequency patches. I just got a harmony pendant. I sleep like gold, but around the moon, when it's a new moon and a full moon, I'm like, why can't I sleep? Oh, I look up the lunar cycle. I'm like, oh, that's why.
Yes, me too. So it's the moon, and it's also for me the wind. It's windy for some reason.
Wind.
I love wind too, and I think that's what my body's like. Oh, get up! Look, it's windy. It's not helpful, but so we can get into this funk, right? And that's challenging for women, particularly women who have been, optimistic and have always felt good and always felt like you did, like, oh, this is just going to continue. How I feel, feeling so good, it's just going to continue. And it again is part of this, what's happened to me. I'm not who I was before. And it can be very heavy, right? If you don't know what's happening. So I'm really grateful to have this conversation with you, because women are, we talk about being storytellers and sharing our stories, but what really happens sometimes is that women are story keepers, and we don't talk about the unpleasantness that can happen in life. And so each woman has to meet up with it as a new thing they'd never heard of before, because we haven't been talking about it. So I love to have these conversations and actually share some of these experiences that are very, very common. So, anyone who's listening, who's feeling meh, who's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do for the next 4 decades, you're right on track, right? You're right where you're supposed to be, because space is opening up for you to do things differently and make new choices.
And it's not just a physical thing that we're seeing happen. It's an emotional, it's a mental thing. And I love it, because I know a lot of women, myself included, and I'm very spiritual, and I'm very aware of a lot of things. I'm very mindful, but you said so many ahas, like, oh, I'm not alone, like the invisibility and tying it to pheromones. I never tied that to that before, because I have told friends, and I've been single for a while, I'm like, God, I'm just invisible. I am invisible out there, not just to men, but I can walk by and nobody even
exactly. And it's hard. It's a hit, right? And we don't talk about it unless, I say it to you and your eyes light up. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
So it's not just me, right?
Yeah. And like you said, it's not just romantic, it's just engaging with people, like the engagement. I'm not seeing that as much. And I talk to the cashier, I'll talk to whoever, but it's not like it was before.
No, I mean, so you're in a bakery or whatever, where there tends to be a lot of people, or you're in a grocery shop waiting your turn and nobody sees you anymore. Right. I'm so grateful now when I go into a shop like that and I can pull a number, because then I know, right? Okay, they're going to call my number and I can walk up. Now it's better now for me, because I've worked those things out, and I know how to show up, and I know what's happening, and I don't take it personally. But when it first starts to happen and people were like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see you. It can be like, it can be like a punch, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Well, I've been standing here for 5 minutes right in front of you. How have you not seen me? So what's, if we could just flip that a little bit, like, what a gift. My whole life I've wanted to be invisible. Well, now I got it, right? So I can. It's just this idea of, Gloria Steinem said that she believes that an army of gray-haired ladies are quietly going to take over the world. And I know how we're going to do it, right? We're going to just go in invisibly, and nobody's going to see us, pull the triggers and create situations that cause ripples in the world. Anyway, that's a little bit, sort of a joke that I keep in the back of my head. Like, that's okay. You don't see me, but
especially when you go gray hair. I mean, I got some going on here, but a little bit, but gray hair underneath a little bit.
Well, so that's part of it too. This idea of we need to cover that. Now, I'm not putting out any kind of judgment about women who color their hair. I was blonde for 2 decades because I liked it. I liked how it looked. And then once we went through this experiment that we just went through with lockdown and everybody not being able to leave their homes and all of that kind of stuff, I just thought, well, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to actually let the natural color come in. So this brunette is my natural color, and now I have sparkles, right?
Sparkles.
And I'm going to let the sparkles come as they come, because I think it's important for women to sort of embrace aging, because when you look at the opposite of it, the opposite of aging is death, right? Like, I would much rather be aging, and aging in a healthy way. But I think part of the reason that women, as we get older, become invisible is because we pretend that we're not getting older. So we dye our hair, and, some women choose to have surgeries and injections and all of those things to not get older. And I think that might be creating this sense of, women who are older have nothing to offer, right? So if I'm, an army of one right now, I know there's lots of women who are sort of embracing this idea of let's just age gracefully and allow the world to see us, right? I think that that's a shift I've seen a lot more recently, this idea of, and it's not, I don't care what you think. It's more the sense of I understand and know who I am. Right. And
Standing in
also,
that power. Yep.
yeah. And also, I don't care if you don't like my gray hair. Kind of a little bit of that too.
Speaking into that, I went on a date. I'm 50. I think I was 51 then. It was like a year ago. I went on this date. I was looking nice. I had some highlights and we were going out for Mexican and he was cute. But he says to me, he's like, so what color is your hair anyway, besides gray? Because I had a teeny bit of gray. Exactly. Teeny bit of gray because, I maintain my hair in between my appointments, but I was going out of town the next week to visit friends. So you kind of push it until then. I'm like, and when I go on these things, I'm like, I'm 50 years old. I've got some grays, but he called it out. I'm like, but it shocks me so much in the moment that I was like, but afterwards I was like, what an asshole. I'm never talking to him again.
Exactly.
Like, how dare he?
I don't understand what's happened in our culture when people think that they have the right to comment on something about you. Right. And it goes back to some of these expectations, right? That, well, you should have been expecting that because you're a woman. You should have been expecting somebody to criticize your appearance. And it hits you every time it happens because you're like, what just happened here?
Yeah.
Right.
Just a teeny bit. And he called, I'm like, really?
Right. I was at a consumer show once I used to have a radio show. And so I was promoting my radio show and I was standing beside a promo shot of me that I had in the booth in case I had to leave and, go to the bathroom or whatever. There was this life-size poster of me standing there. And someone came up to me, it was actually a woman, and she looked at me and looked at the poster and looked at me and looked at the poster. And she said, "You look better in the poster." What? And I laughed and I was like, well, I don't have a lighting crew following me around 24/7. So, that might be why. But I was just like, wow. Interesting that you thought that was helpful to me to share that piece of information.
It should be the other way. You look better in person than a photo. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, if you have to say anything at all.
Right. It's like, wah, 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 wah.
But it was just another example of how I hadn't fulfilled my role as being perfect. Right. One of those things that women are expected to be is perfect.
So do you help women in your program? I know you have one coming up in January, the Midlife Alchemy 8-week program. What are some of the things you find a lot of women that you work with that are coming to you? And what are their biggest obstacles that you find that they have to overcome? Being perfect, of course, is one of them.
Right. So it's really important to understand how we got where we are, right? Each woman in her life has her own path that got her to midlife. And so we need to understand, the woman needs to understand where she is and how she got there. So it's a lot of taking a look at the social roles that we have played and who we're supposed to be in all of those roles, because they dissolve. A lot of those dissolve at midlife, right? You're not mom the same way anymore. You might not be daughter anymore, right? So many things have changed. And I think we get into habitual patterns of this is how I'm supposed to be in the world. Well, no, you don't have to, but we're in the habit of doing it. So we need to look at those things. So we look at that. We look at mind. I call them belief implants, this idea that, and it's tied to the social expectations on women, to look at some of the beliefs that we have that we don't even question anymore, and whether or not they serve us and if they ever served us. So it's this idea of at midlife, it's you can almost sweep the slate clean and start over again, but you want to do it with awareness this time, right? So understand how we got to this place where we feel as if we have to reframe ourselves, right? And then it's moving through those and creating new beliefs and really getting out of your head and the thinking and into your body and the being, because I really believe that the answers about who you are and what's next for you, which are the big questions women all often have, are in your body and in your and in your intuition and your wisdom. So teaching women how to get out of the habitual thinking and out of the head, out of the brain, and into the body, and exercising that. And then, of course, moving into the creativity and what does that look like, and moving forward through that, because women are very creative beings. We have wombs. Whether or not you produced a child or not, we were brought into the world to create. And for women who were mothers, and it doesn't even matter actually whether a woman ever wanted children. When we get to the menopause, perimenopause, and menopause phase, and that goes away, women across the board feel a sense of a chapter closing, whether or not children were ever part of the picture. There is this just suddenly awareness of, okay, well, that's done. That's no longer an option. If it ever was, it doesn't matter if I never wanted it to be, it's done. But we still have this need to create. So what are we going to create? And how are we going to continue to contribute in a way that's aligned for us and our own journey? So that's what we work through. And also, because I was a holistic nutritionist, I can't leave that out, right? So we move through the world in a body. So let's get that body healthy. And if your gut and your heart talk to you, well, let's make sure they're healthy, right? Let's make sure that those organs and systems are working properly, so that you can be a clear channel for whatever it is, that information that you want to bring in next. So yeah, it's really a journey of self-discovery that sort of works from how did we get here? What are those social, cultural forces that have sort of framed your experience thus far? Which ones are you ready to let go? How to let go? But also this idea of, who do I want to be, and how do I support her in the next phase of my life?
So it's turning inward.
Oh,
and a lot of women, now it's such an external thing, and women are internal. But we've been so focused and taught to look on the outside and like, how is someone reacting to us? And we need to cater to however they're feeling instead of how I'm actually feeling. I don't, who am I to feel this way?
Right.
So, and it's returning to maybe over 100 years ago or even more, when we were recognized more for our wisdom and, more heart intelligence, and our intuition was honored. And then modern society, especially in the last, 30, 40 years, has really taken that away from us, or we've really lost that. And it's returning to that which we were immersed in way back when, before we were burned as witches. Before, a lot of that's in our lineage. It's in our DNA. It's, we remember it. So we've learned to be quiet. We've learned to hide our gifts. We've learned to conform. We've learned to, fit into these little boxes. Well, these little boxes don't fit anymore. And it's time to break out of these boxes.
And what's amazing at midlife is that we're so angry about what we have allowed to happen in our own lives, right? That we're ready to say, I'm ready to do it differently now. And I don't care if you don't like me anymore. And that is one of the gifts of midlife is, women hear, I want to be a nice person. I want people to like me. And I think we all have a little bit of that in us. Nobody wants to be an island. We're not meant to be like that, collaboration and community and all that. But if you're a good person and a loving person and a kind person, whatever that means to you, it's okay if people, not everybody likes you. Right. And it's okay that you don't like everybody. Right. Yes. So it's about building those, knowing what you need, the boundaries that you need, and understanding how to protect them, and understanding which ones you're not going to let people cross. And I think at midlife, we have finally have the confidence to say, okay, I'm not going to take this anymore. Things are going to be different now. I had someone say to me the other day, who is going through an experience with her partner, her husband. And she's like, you know what? For 30 years, he's driven the car. And now I'm going to drive the car, and I don't care if he's not in it. Right. And so we get to this place where we're like, you know what? Either other people are going to shift their dance, or I'm not dancing with them anymore. And I think that that's really empowering too. And it's a shame that we, wait till we're at midlife to finally go, what? But again, this goes back to the programming, right? When we were young, we were told, again, this idea of you can have it all. You have your career and all of that kind of thing, but nobody ever encouraged us to sit with, what would you like? Right? What is your soul calling out for? And very often, if we did say, well, I'm feeling the call to do this, people would say, well, you'll never make a living doing that. I mean, that's a nice hobby, right? So this sense of not being encouraged to be who we are from teen, really, right? We've been sort of programmed to be this version of ourselves. And it's just so incredibly freeing at midlife to just go, maybe it's time to reframe who I am.
Let's reframe who we are. I love it. Yeah, it just needs to, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. And that's not just looking in the mirror. Yes, we look in the mirror and we see the changes going on physically, but looking in the mirror and, reflecting on what we really need for ourselves in order to thrive, because we are going to be here a long time. The kids are going to be gone. Maybe we're in our 40s and we're experiencing this. And, like you said, you've got like 40 years or you've got this lifetime ahead of you. Are you going to still be okay with the status quo? I love that about the cart. Like, you're either going to be in it with me or I don't care if you don't.
And I'm driving now.
Yes.
And with that idea of, you've got 30 or 40 years in your future, but you're feeling stuck now, right? So I had this experience myself where I didn't know what my next step was going to be, right? And how I like to describe it is I was in the void, and my void was this dark place where I was standing on a stone tower and I could see nothing. It wasn't scary. It was just kind of like this emptiness of, well, I don't know what to do, and I'm not getting any light. I'm not getting any hints. Nothing's coming to me. And then I start thinking, and then I start panicking, right? It's like, oh my gosh, is this going to be 40 years of me not knowing what I'm meant to do next? And I think it's important for women to understand, if you're in that place and you don't know, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? That's okay too. Like, just relax. You're too in your head right now, and it's never going to come to you when you're in your head. So if anyone's listening and you're in that space, that the void, however you experience that or whatever you want to call it, I encourage you to do something fun and creative. Like, if you're a painter, paint. If you are a gardener, garden. If you make clothing, do whatever it is. If you cook, do it. Because when you're in that space of being creative, that little voice that says, you're no good, you shouldn't be, that little, so you can't hear it, because you're in this space of creativity or flow or whatever you want to call it. And when you're there and you go there more often, then you become more open to creativity and creative ideas. So it's a way for you to figure out, not the end of your story, but what your next step might be, right? So that's really sort of a fun thing that women can do if they're feeling that right now, that, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do next.
What are some of the steps you would give somebody to, start pursuing that creativity, that little creative nudge, or to follow that which they're being called to do, like finding their purpose finding their purpose. And what am I being called to do, and stepping into that, having the courage to.
Right. So here's another thing that, for people who are in the spiritual world or follow a lot of teachers, there's a lot of pressure on people to find their purpose, or people might take that on as a responsibility. Oh, I've got to figure out my purpose. And then you become so entangled up in that finding your purpose becomes your purpose, right? And you just feel like you're never making a move forward. So one of the things that you can do if you're feeling that sort of anxiety about, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, is, again, just let it go. Maybe you don't have a purpose. Right?
And that's okay.
Maybe, I mean, we all have a reason, but I feel as if, there's so much pressure on us to find that purpose, right? So I did a blog on this. If you want to go to my website, there's a blog there. It was really short and sweet. And it's this idea of stop putting pressure on yourself to find your purpose, and instead maybe do a little bit of reflection. Look back over your life and see sort of the big chunks. What was your purpose at this phase? And what was your purpose at this phase? And what was your purpose at this phase? And maybe you'll see a theme, right? Something is running through all of those things that you did that really you immersed yourself in and you were jazzed about. And it was just awesome because really we are here to experience life. We are here to learn and grow. That is our purpose. So if you go back and do sort of a life review, right, you can say, oh, I did this and I did this and I did this. And this is the thing that went sort of connected all of them. And just becoming aware before of what your purposes were before or what your focuses were before. I think that's really helpful for people. For me, my life theme is curiosity. So I really feel aligned with a hummingbird. So the hummingbird flits from flower to flower and, sort of enjoys little bits here and little bits there. But I also love the hummingbird because the hummingbird is meant to remind you to suck the sweetness out of life, right? And so when you're flitting from thing to thing, it's sort of this reminder for me to have fun, because again, I can be very, very in my head and thinky, right? I know of whereof I speak because I'm talking about myself when I say this idea of, oh, we think too much and we got to get in our bodies and all of that kind of thing. So if you're feeling that pressure to find your purpose, just let it go and just pay attention. Again, in my coaching program, we talk about finding your North Star, which again is just connecting with your body and figuring out how you want to be. So it's all about your state of being, right? How do you want to feel? How do you want to show up? And when you focus on that and you really give that you make that very precious, then what you do isn't as important, right? We don't do things for the doing of them. We do them for how they make us feel, right? Any hobby that you have, any pursuit that you have, any, night out, you don't do it for the night out. You do it because you want to feel connection or you want to be invigorated by music or whatever it is. So if we switch from what am I supposed to be doing, right? Supposed to, should, right? Air quotes.
Get rid of those.
Get rid of
those.
The shoulds. Get rid of the shoulds. How do I want to feel? And focus on that. And that will help bring in some of those answers about next steps. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did 100%. How does it make me feel and assess it from that place? And just the purpose. It's like, it doesn't have to be this huge lofty thing like saving the world or, saving the planet or that. It could just, like you said, being, a state of being. How am I showing up in the world? Am I happy? How am I being in my day to day? How do the people around me, just one little smile could change someone's whole trajectory of their day or their life, really. Right. So it could just be a state of being because you could be doing that purpose and not feeling. Feeling in your body or feeling in that, that's your purpose, is just to find that, to be happy.
And as you said, that idea of if you are being you and I am being me and your energy is rippling out as your beingness and my beingness is rippling out, I believe that that's what we're supposed to, be while we're here. We're supposed to be who we are meant to be, who we came to be. So that's where the reflection comes in. But, going back to that Gloria Steinem comment about gray-haired ladies, I really think that if women stand in who they are meant to be, and we create the ripples from there, that is going to be what changes the world in a way that we want, right? And it's not about pretending that I'm somebody that I'm not. It's not about doing something. It's just being me, just being and honoring my being. And then we're not impacted by fear, and we're not impacted by propaganda, and we're not impacted by what you think I should be doing, or the fact that I don't have the newest telephone or the biggest house, right? All of those things don't matter because I'm just standing here being, right? So I think I have this vision that that's what it is. If we could just all be,
Mm-hmm.
our divine being.
Absolutely. Because I've been reading a lot of quantum physics and frequency and vibration and, the Christ within you and, or whatever you would call it, the love essence, because we're energetic spiritual beings. And when we are radiating that outwards, we don't have to say anything to anyone else. Literally, their field is going to pick it up. And whether they consciously realize it or not, you've affected their field, which in turn can help and affect them as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. And again, so great, a great reminder, keeping that imagery in your head of the ripple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you see this a lot where, again, there's this social pressure to go live your best life, be big, be bold, be powerful. No, maybe that's not why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're here to create a tiny little ripple, right? And your beingness creates that ripple, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if those memes that you see that say, "Oh, be bold," if they make you feel small, they're not for you. Don't judge yourself about them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even take them in. Like, let's be Teflon and let that slide off. Because there are a lot of people that's not, it doesn't even feel right. Right? If you say, "Oh, be bold," they're like,
Mm-mm.
no, no,
No.
no, 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 no. I'll just quietly garden over here. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And being okay with that. And that's the same as what you're going into the next phase of your life. Whenever it comes to, oh, you got to work hard, you got to hustle, you got to, my life always comes grinding to a halt and I get stressed out thinking about that. I don't want it like that. I
No.
want ease. I want flow. I want, when I surrender more, things come to me, becoming like you said, it's the alchemist.
Right.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
transforming things just from our being. And it's just, I mean, some women do thrive on that. They get go and
Some
hustle.
do. Some
Yes.
do. Yes. So,
But
and those memes were probably created by them for them.
yes.
But when I look at those memes myself, because when I was younger, I was probably more like that. I was probably
Mm-hmm.
more, let's go, let's whatever. Now I look at it and I look at it with empathetic eyes because I work with so many women at midlife who have no energy, right? They're just
Mm-hmm.
like, meh. It's so exhausting. And I look at a meme like that and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure that's serving people,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it's almost another form of judgment, right? You're not even doing that
Mm-hmm.
properly, right? So just be conscious of when you're looking at things like memes and social medias and social trends. If it doesn't make you feel good, it's not for you, and just don't even take it in.
That's really great advice because a lot of things are coming after us. I know, if you're on your Instagram or one of those, mediums, that it gets curated to what you're constantly looking at.
Right.
And I try to find more that are like more spiritually aligned. I mean, there's so much stuff on the media, and it's like, you got to listen to your body's wisdom. How is this making you feel instead of how thinking that this is what I should be doing or what looking at and being? It's like, it's really going back to the basics and feeling and getting into our body and going from doing to being, because then that we're able to, I don't know, rest in our essence and just be. I love just being. I don't
Just
know
be
how.
right. And
Yeah.
and that's, again, embracing the wisdom of that. When you are a midlife woman, you've got a couple of decades of experience. You've been
Mm-hmm.
around, the block a few times. You have life experience. You have seen some things. And anyone with any sort of sense of, self-awareness understands their role in it, or has started working on what their role is in all of the things that have happened to them. So honor that experiential knowledge and wrap that up with the wisdom that's already in your body. And oh my gosh, yes, you're a powerful being, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can sometimes see what's coming. And this is for women too who think they don't have intuition, right? Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's rusty maybe. You've ignored it for too long. You need just to exercise that muscle again, and practice letting your intuition talk to you, and then honoring it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just if your intuition says don't go to the party, then go, okay, I won't go to the party then. right? And see what happens instead of that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, we're coming into holiday season now. If there's an event you don't want to go to and you can't explain why you don't want to go, don't go. No
Mm-hmm.
excuses. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And being
Right.
okay with it, or that relative, that husband's family, that mother-in-law that never liked me or treated me well. No, you go. We're going to do this. I heard this once. We're going to do this. We're going to do Christmas as a family, and then you can go over there after. Or just not being okay with that kind of treatment, and like you can go and, but not on this day. This day is for us and the family, and then honoring that,
Right.
especially with the holidays.
Right. And holidays can be really tricky. So it's an interesting time to practice this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's and for people who don't journal, I encourage yourself,
Mm-hmm.
go get a journal, because it was one of those things that I personally resisted for years. And once I started journaling, I realized that, I was resisting this because of how powerful it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you pick up your journal in the morning, and I do it before I get out of bed, because if I get my coffee into me, that's it. There's no more journaling. Right. So I do it before I get out of bed. And on those days when I don't know what I want to journal about, or, I just write, what would you have me know today?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what comes when you ask that
Mm-hmm.
question. Right. And sometimes it's sideways and you're just like, what? I wasn't even thinking about that. But there's wisdom in that, because when you wake up in the morning and your brain hasn't clicked on yet, you just sort of have this open flow with your subconscious, right? And the divine, if
Mm-hmm.
that's something that resonates for you. And the information that you get is just so chewy and priceless and so
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Mm-hmm. It's like the artist way in the morning pages.
Yes.
Can do your stream of consciousness, stream of thought, and or do what you're grateful for. But I like your idea that you just roll over and grab a journal
Yes.
instead of having to get up and feed the animals or whatever you have to do, the coffee. So that's a really
Yeah.
good
It works
practice.
for me. It works
Mm-hmm.
for me for sure. And then I get up and have the coffee for sure.
Yes, love the coffee. Yeah, having some kind of practice like that and getting it all out, there's so much that will be revealed. And if it doesn't come, asking those empowering questions, or asking those questions that your thought can just flow around.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right. And keep going too, because sometimes we're like, I have nothing to write today.
right.
And Julia Cameron does say, write for 3 pages, because
That's a lot.
it feels like a lot. So my book isn't that big. It's 6 by 9, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So 3 pages isn't a lot, but I could write a page and a half of crap.
Yeah.
Like,
And then you get to
and
the
then
gold.
and then it
Yeah.
starts. So push through that, and don't worry about punctuation or grammar. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody can read it, that's not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Point form is wonderful. Draw pictures. It doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just this great way to connect with yourself before your brain kicks in.
Yeah. And that's true. 3 pages, because you might just be writing like bitchy stuff or what you're upset
Yes.
about, or what, your day's coming, and then the beautiful gold comes and it just starts changing, and it is revelatory.
Yes,
So,
I wrote my book. The first draft of my book, Forget About Having It All, came from my journal, and I would get up in the morning. It was in the summer, and I sat on my sister's dock on the water, and I would just say, "So, what do midlife women need to know about X?" And then, right, and I just started
mm-hmm.
writing. And yes, I had to correct for grammar and punctuation and flow and whatnot later. But yes, it was amazing to me how easily it came first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm. So you were writing for your book first thing in the morning. You took that from your journal pages.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes. Because I was,
because you're open
I'm,
to the inspiration.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And I'm on the journey too, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
all on the journey. I've always been aware of my goal to self-actualize,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is a big fancy word for, it just means be who you're supposed to be, fill it color all the way to the lines, right? Just fill it all up. And yeah, I just found that writing first thing in the morning and asking those questions and going on this journey, this idea of, well, what did I learn about that? And how did I sort that out? Or how can I move the needle for myself a little bit more? So it was all about myself, right? But then also sort of tying in the experience of women that I was working with and women that I talked to in my research and that kind of thing. So yes, it was very much a journal. And it would start as a personal journal, and then I could feel when it became more a teaching right? This is what you need to share to teach. But it always started in that personal place of what am I going to do and how do I move through this and that sort of thing.
And your book is so great because it's coming from somebody who's going through the same thing, because we learn from each other and our own experiences. So I love that. And everyone should pick up this book. I'm going to put it in the show notes, where to get it on Amazon and also on her webpage. And can you tell us where to find you and how to work with you?
Yes. Thank you very much. So my website is lisapetty.com. I have a free offer for anyone who is interested in practicing getting in touch with your body. So it's lisapetty.com/check-in. It's called a well-being check-in. It's sort of a self-guided mindful connection exercise. I do have a Midlife Alchemy group program. The inaugural group is starting in January. So the book just came out in the fall. So this is the first time I'm running this program. I'm very excited about it. As I said, a combination of mind, body, spirit, sort of moving through. Anyone who's stuck and feeling like, I don't know what my next step is, and I don't even have the energy, and I'm feeling that sense of ennui. I'm completely lost, but I know that I'm here for more. I'm thinking about legacy. I'm thinking about the next 20 or 30 or 40 years of my life. The course or the program is designed for women who are in that place in their lives. And yes, I have a free Facebook group called Midlife Alchemy as well. So women are welcome to join that. And I do lives in there and conversation and articles and that sort of thing.
Well, I'll put all those in the show notes, and you've got a program coming up soon. So January 10th, is it? Is it coming up?
Yes, it's starting in January, and the hope is that it will continue, right? So that's when I'm kickstarting it and hoping that will be an ongoing experience. Yeah,
and it'll keep going through 23 and on and on.
Yes.
But I love how you're addressing women's minds, their thoughts. It has to do with the body, the physicality, and the emotions. And when we get those all in balance, like anything is possible for us. And we're just much more, we're so much more happier and so much more fulfilled from not an external place, but truly from within.
Right. Exactly.
It's a beautiful place to be. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation. And I think it's so important because there's a whole group of people, like generations of women, that aren't being addressed, that we're being forgotten about. And this can help them to really, really lead fulfilling lives, even after what they think they should.
Exactly.
Get them away from the mess, right?
Yes.
And one more question before we go. I ask everybody, my guests, what does it mean for you to live from an awakened heart? Or maybe we could say, what does it mean for a midlife woman to lead from an awakened heart?
Oh, well, first of all, there is that awareness of the wisdom that comes from your heart. And I think for a lot of midlife women, we've got to get there, right? To the awareness that the wisdom is in the heart. And once we are tuned in to the heart and always being aware of who we wish to be and honoring that, and the heart will guide us there, right? I think that's how we live from an awakened heart, just being who you are, who you know you are, protected like the precious thing that it is, and just honor it.
I love that. Beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate this conversation, and I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.